March 23, 1944, Sobibor, Poland. The morning air was cold enough to bite through thin cloth, and it carried a silence that felt heavier than any scream. Inside the barbed wire of Sobibor, silence often meant fear. It meant waiting. It meant watching the guard's shadows stretch across the ground and wondering whose name would be called next, whose body would fall, whose hope would finally give up. For Miriam, every breath felt borrowed, every step a risk she could not afford, yet could not stop taking. She had learned to walk carefully, not just with her feet, but with her soul. Too much emotion could get you killed here. Too much kindness could draw attention. Too much fear could paralyze you. And yet, on that morning, Miriam clutched a small bundle in her trembling hands, scraps of bread she had saved over days by swallowing hunger and pretending she was not starving. The bread was dry, broken, barely enough to matter, barely enough to live. But in Sobibor, barely enough was sometimes everything. She moved between the barracks with her head lowered, eyes alert, heart pounding. Guards patrolled the paths with ruthless precision, rifles slung casually as if death were an ordinary chore. Dogs snarled at the ends of leashes. Every sound felt amplified. Boots crunching gravel, shouted orders, the wind rattling wire fences. Miriam knew the punishment for what she carried. She knew that if she were caught, there would be no mercy, no explanation, no second chance. Still, she walked. Near the edge of the barracks, she saw him. The boy lay on the ground, too weak to sit, his body curled inward as if trying to disappear. His clothes hung off him like they belonged to someone else. His face was pale, lips cracked, eyes half closed. Many had already stopped looking at him. In Sobibor, weakness was dangerous, not just for the one who suffered it, but for anyone who acknowledged it. To notice was to care. To care was to risk everything. Miriam slowed her steps. She scanned the yard once more, measuring time the way prisoners learn to do, not in minutes but in heartbeats. Then she knelt beside him, her movement quick but gentle. She broke the bread into smaller pieces, crumbs really, and pressed them into his thin, shaking hand. Her fingers lingered for a moment, long enough for him to feel the warmth of another human being. The boy's eyes fluttered open. For a brief second, something changed in them. Not strength, not health, but recognition. The knowledge that someone saw him, that he mattered. "Eat slowly," she whispered, barely moving her lips. "You're not alone." He tried to nod, though even that seemed to cost him more energy than he had. His fingers closed weakly around the bread. Miriam adjusted his body slightly, lifting his head just enough so he could swallow without choking. Her movements were careful, practiced, born of necessity. Around them, life in the camp continued as if nothing extraordinary were happening. Orders were shouted, prisoners marched, guards laughed. The machine of cruelty never paused. Miriam stayed only seconds longer. Seconds were all she could afford. She rose, brushed dirt from her knees, and walked away as if nothing had happened. Her heart raced until it hurt. She did not look back. That night, as she lay on her bunk, hunger gnawing at her insides, Miriam wondered if the boy would live until morning. She wondered if her small act had changed anything at all. Sobibor was designed to erase people, to reduce them to numbers, to strip away identity and dignity. What difference could crumbs of bread make against a system built for death? Days passed, then weeks. Miriam saw the boy again, sitting upright this time, his back against a wooden wall. He was still thin, still fragile, but he was alive. Their eyes met briefly. No words were exchanged. None were needed. In that look was gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. A shared understanding that in a place created to destroy humanity, humanity had survived, if only in fragments. Survival in Sobibor was not heroic in the way stories often describe. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic rescues, no moments that felt like victory. Survival was quiet. It was measured in endurance, in small choices made again and again. It was choosing not to become numb. It was deciding every day not to let cruelty turn you cruel. Miriam continued her small acts. Sometimes it was sharing food. Sometimes it was whispering a kind word. Sometimes it was simply standing beside someone so they would not feel alone in their final moments. She did not think of these things as bravery. She thought of them as necessity. If she stopped caring, she believed, she would already be dead, no matter how long her body kept breathing. The guards never noticed her resistance, or perhaps they did and dismissed it as meaningless. That was the irony. The system understood force. It feared weapons and uprisings, but it underestimated compassion. It did not see how dangerous kindness could be. Both Miriam and the boy survived the war. Years later, long after the barbed wire had rusted and the watchtower stood empty, Miriam spoke about Sobibor. She did not focus on the cruelty, though there was plenty of it. She spoke instead about moments like that morning in March, about the boy, about the bread, about the quiet power of choosing to help when doing nothing would have been safer. She said that resistance was not always loud. It did not always look like rebellion. Sometimes it looked like a hand extended in secret. Sometimes it looked like sharing what little you had left. Sometimes it was simply refusing to let another human being disappear without being seen. The boy grew up carrying that lesson with him. He remembered not just the hunger or the fear, but the moment someone knelt beside him when the world had decided he was already gone. That memory became a source of strength, a reminder that even in the darkest places, light can exist, small, fragile, but real. This story is not about miracles. It is about choices, about how, even when stripped of power, people still have the ability to choose compassion. Sobibor tried to reduce human life to something disposable. Miriam's actions said otherwise. They said that humanity is not defined by circumstances, but by response. The moral is simple, but not easy. You may not always be able to change the world, but you can change someone's world. Kindness is never wasted. Even when it seems invisible, it can mean the difference between giving up and holding on. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "I will help," even when fear says, "Walk away." If this story moved you, remember it the next time you see someone struggling. You don't need grand gestures. Small acts matter more than you think. And if you want more stories like this, stories that remind us of humanity, courage, and hope, support this journey by subscribing and staying connected. Sometimes, listening and sharing is also a form of resistance.